You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You know, what Lane Kiffin has been unable to do in games over the last couple of years with Kentucky is avoid getting into a rock fight. The game in 2022 got completely bogged down, ended up being a 3-point game. Kentucky almost won that at the end. In 2024, we all know what happened, but the rock fight was created. Lane Kiffin has struggled to avoid doing that. And it is Mark Stoops' preferred method of playing football, and it's bizarre to make a football game feel like a trip to the dentist, honestly, for the other team. He wants to control the clock, make the game increasingly short to the point where the other team panics a little bit and plays into his hands by trying to make explosives to get the 14-point touchdown, because this just isn't quite going right. This game, and Mark Stoops does a really good job of making you beat yourself and playing directly into his hands. How do you avoid that? How do you move on to the next level? Because this is the first question this week that we're going to go over about Ole Miss football and where they could end up. You need to avoid the rock fight as much as humanly possible. When you look at the last two games, it's interesting to me. These are the last two games, both started by Jaxson Dart. Not really talking about Jaxson Dart, just mentioned that it was that recent. In 2024, Kentucky won 20-17. The biggest stat in that game was Tre Harris catching 11 passes for 176 yards. They were forcing the ball down the field. They were ducking Chuck. All of the stuff that Kentucky was prepared for, Ole Miss didn't have the patience to do. Ole Miss freaked out in that game. They started trying to score those 14-point touchdowns. And once Ole Miss freaked out because of the expectations that they had going into that game, it just played directly into Kentucky's hands. But this isn't the only time that has happened. This isn't a new thing. If you go back to 2022, game also in Vaught-Hemingway Stadium, Ole Miss won 22-19 in that game. And in that game, Ole Miss needed a sack-cost fumble at the very end to prevent something weird from happening. Kentucky was going down in field goal range to tie the game up. That game was probably headed to overtime if it makes it. In 2024, it was a missed field goal at the end, or that game was headed to overtime. Rock fights are just the norm and what you can expect from Kentucky, right? Not necessarily the case. During my research of what was going on, I made the discovery that as far as stylistic playing, Austin Simmons is closer to Matt Corral than he is to Jaxson Dart as far as how he plays the position of quarterback. A lot more stuff downfield with Jaxson Dart. Austin Simmons is very quick. Get the ball out of your hand. Keep it moving. Move the chains. He's not the runner that Matt Corral was, but in the passing game, it was very similar. In 2020, Ole Miss went up to Lexington, Kentucky as well. And this was a very interesting thing. Ole Miss won the game 42-41 in overtime, another close game. Ole Miss did not have a defense that year, and Kentucky had a much better offensive team that year. But a missed extra point allowed Ole Miss to win the game. That's not the point. Ole Miss scored 42 points on Mark Stoops that night, or that day. Matt Corral was 24 of 29, 320 yards and 4 touchdowns in that game. It doesn't have to be a rock fight, is my point. If you go up there and move the chains and can score touchdowns, you can make this pressure go from you over to Kentucky, because if you get a lead, Kentucky offensively is going to panic a little bit, and they're going to have to do some stuff that they are not prepared to do. I think Matt Corral and Austin Simmons stylistically play the quarterback position in a similar way. And I think some quick stuffs to the tight end. You're not going to be force feeding somebody like Tre Harris, but you have weapons on the outside like Harrison Wallace and DeSean Stribling and Caden Lee. There's so many different things that Ole Miss can do and open up the Kentucky defense. The jet sweep coming back, I am very much in favor of that. But you can see how to avoid the rock fight that Mark Stoops in Kentucky so desperately wants. And you know what? I think they will. I think the blowout is coming. The pick is going to be a little bit later in the week, but I feel pretty good about where Ole Miss sits right now. We have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to the lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes the survey will be entered to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that is lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link below in the show notes. Thank you so much for helping us out. Thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we are the front door of Ole Miss. So don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. It helps the show, and it is totally free. Your support means the world to us. And in another big moment for Locked On college football fans, Locked On and Fire TV are presenting College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson and former college star Jesse Holley and Locked On's local experts, right? A local college football preview that only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Hotty toddy, everybody. Remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.